Okay, let's be honest. We've all been there, right? You pop open Task Manager, you're scrolling through the processes, you see SQL Server.exe, and your heart just sinks. That memory usage bar is pegged to the absolute max, and your first thought is probably, oh no, it's over. The server is about to fall over. Sound familiar? Yeah, I'll bet it does. It looks like SQL Server is just gobbling up every last bit of RAM it can possibly find. And you're sitting there thinking, is this a memory leak? Am I in serious trouble here? Well, before you reach for that restart button, let's take a deep breath and figure out what's really going on. Okay, so here's the big reveal. On one hand, you've got that voice of panic screaming, memory leak, the server's crashing. But the reality, it's not a bug, it's a feature. Seriously. What you're seeing is actually SQL Server being, well, really, really good at its job. And hey, don't just take my word for it. Microsoft's own documentation says this is exactly how it's supposed to work. They state that, by default, SQL Server is going to consume most of the available memory. And, this is the key part, it won't release that memory unless the OS basically begs for it back. So yeah, it's greedy, but it's a productive kind of greed. So, why is being greedy a good thing? Well, to understand that, let's use an analogy. I want you to picture SQL Server as this brilliant but kind of greedy librarian. And this librarian has one job, and one job only, to get you the information you need as fast as humanly possible. Okay, so the first big piece of this puzzle is something called the buffer pool. This is the main culprit behind all that memory usage you see. It's basically a giant chunk of RAM that SQL Server claims for itself just to hold on to data. So, in our analogy, the buffer pool is the librarian's giant desk. Think about it. Instead of having to run all the way back to the slow, dusty shelves, that's your hard drive, by the way, every single time you ask for a book, the librarian keeps all the popular ones right there on the desk. A full desk is a fast desk. It's the same exact principle for SQL Server. A full buffer pool is a fast buffer pool. But wait, there's more. It's not just about the data. There's another big memory consumer called the plan cache. This is where SQL Server keeps its recipes, its how-to guides for running your queries in the most efficient way. Back to our librarians. The plan cache is their little cheat sheet. It has all the shortcuts, the fastest routes to find any book you ask for. That way, when you come back and ask for the same book again, they don't have to figure it all out from scratch. They just look at the cheat sheet and go. It's all about not reinventing the wheel every single time. Okay, so if a full desk is a good thing, when does it become a bad thing? When does our super efficient librarian actually get into trouble and start slowing down? That's the real question, right? Let's dig into the actual warning signs. First things first, we need to bust a myth. If you've worked with SQL Server for any length of time, you've probably heard of something called page life expectancy, or PLE. For a long time, this was the metric everyone looked at. Well, I'm here to tell you to just forget about it. It's old, it's outdated, and honestly, it can point you in the completely wrong direction.
And the database guru Brent Azar put it perfectly. He said that for years, people demanded to see PLE in their monitoring tools because, well, too many DBAs think it's a useful metric. And the result was that people ended up focusing too much on the wrong metric. It just caused a ton of noise and confusion.
So if we're throwing PLE out the window, what should we be looking for? The real villain here is something called memory pressure. This is the actual problem. It's when SQL Server has a query it wants to run, but it can't because it's literally just waiting for some memory to free up. It's like a traffic jam inside your server. And the way we spot this traffic jam is by looking at something called wait stats. These are your real red flags. There are two big ones to watch out for. First is page IOLatch SH. A high number here means your librarian is constantly having to run back to the slow shelves. The data it needs isn't on the desk. The second one is resource semaphore. This one's even more obvious. It means a query is standing in line, tapping its foot, waiting for enough memory to even get started. But here's the good news. You don't have to guess if this is happening. There's a super simple query you can run right now that will tell you exactly what your server is waiting on. It lets you peek behind the curtain and see if your librarian is just busy or if they're actually stressed out. When you run that query, you're going to get a list back. A lot of it is just noise you can ignore, but what you're hunting for are our two friends, PageOLatch-SS and Resource Semaphore. If you see those bubbling up to the top of the list, especially with high wait times, bingo, that's your smoking gun. That's a clear sign of real memory pressure. All right, so let's boil this all down. What do you need to remember? Number 1, high RAM usage is normal. It's a good thing. It means your server is being efficient. Number 2, if things feel slow, your first move shouldn't be to blame the RAM usage you see in Task Manager. Number 3, instead, check your wait stats. Look specifically for page IL latch and resource semaphore. And number 4, if you find them, that's when you start digging into which queries are causing all that waiting. So I'll just leave you with this thought. The next time you see that performance dip and the memory usage is through the roof, you're not going to panic. Instead, you're going to ask the right question. Is my server really out of memory? Or do I just have a few queries that are being way too